And, as a result, we've seen some pretty significant shifts in the marketing teams in our clients where they have restructured their marketing teams to move forward. They're not going to go backwards now.
It's going to be great to get a marketing perspective, or as I like to call it, the colouring in department's perspective. Shameless.
I actually, this water's full, Mark. You better be careful. The colouring in department. I think there are some great agencies out there that can do good qualification to make sure the handover is successful. So there's lots of kind of fresh chat in the agency at the moment. It's exactly that. What do they need to do to progress? What do they need to do to be successful?
Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast. Hello, I'm Marc Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the pleasure of Fiona McKenzie, Client Services Director from Revere, in the house. How are we doing, Fiona?
We are good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
No, pleasure for you to come on. Now, for those channel partners, vendors, distributors and listeners that don't know what Revere do, give us a sort of 2-minute synopsis of what the company do.
Okay, so Revere are a B2B technology specialist marketing agency. So in short, we support our clients across the channel ecosystem, whether it be working with vendors to help them reach their end user, or indeed their channel partners, working with distributors or channel partners to ultimately help reach their audience in the right way at the right time, whether that be through campaigns or marketing programs. And I guess, at Revere, our goal is always to be an extension of their team. So to become real knowledge holders, really understand their business, to become integrated in it so that together we can create work that is revered by others. And
you're only tech focused as well, because I noticed recently, and you told me at lunchtime that we'd won the Sales and Marketing Agency of the Year.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
I should have bought ours.
You should have bought yours, and then the last 2 years you have, haven't you, as well?
We have, and I'm absolutely gutted. I haven't had that moment on the stage, so I'm really hoping that 2022 is the year for both of us. Third time lucky.
Yeah, get on the stage. Yeah,
and we can get on the stage and party in style, because winning awards remotely, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, is it?
It's not the same. No.
Now, Fiona, most of our guests that I've had on the Channel Chat show have come from a sales background.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be great to get a marketing perspective, or as I like to call it, the colouring in department's perspective. Shameless.
I actually, this water's full, Mark. You better be careful. The colouring in department.
So what I'm interested in seeing is, what have you seen has been the main challenges over the last 18 months? Because marketing has definitely shifted.
Yeah.
And one thing, for my perspective when I've seen it, for the better.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, when COVID hit, there is no denying it was a scary time for marketing agencies, and the calls kind of came in from clients putting budgets on hold. And I remember thinking, my goodness, what's going to happen here? What does this look like? And I think it was the same across the whole industry.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly, however, it was not that budgets were being cut; it's that clients were pivoting their strategy. The campaigns they had out in market no longer met the needs and the challenges of the audience. So actually 2020 was a really good year for us, because we had to really quickly respond to what had happened in the market and pivot the strategies to make sure that everything they had resonated. And obviously for some of our clients, big opportunities arose that they wanted to be maximising. So there's definitely been a lot of change, for sure. I think, in short, the biggest things that we've probably seen over the last 18 months is that shift to digital. Probably definitely more alignment between sales and marketing.
Really?
Yeah,
That's the big debate now. Does sales and marketing actually get aligned with these sort of things?
I mean, I think it's definitely the biggest challenge to create really, really good work. The success, and we're really lucky across our clients at Revere. We've got a great bunch of clients, and we work hard. We're an extension of their team, and we really do try and bring in the insights from sales. I think the success of connecting sales and marketing is by bringing in sales up front, by making sure that marketing teams understand what the sales strategy is, what the business strategy is, what are the business goals, what is that business vision, what does that 2, 3, 5 year plan look like, and what's the sales strategy to align to that. And ultimately, that's what's marketing's job to do, is to build campaigns that complement what sales teams are doing and work alongside them.
Everyone talked about, when COVID hit, about the digital transformation to home working, remote working, etc. But there was a digital transformation in marketing, wasn't there? Because I noticed that there was a lot of partners and vendors that were putting on virtual events, suddenly becoming experts in remote working, suddenly putting on virtual, they were having pre-sales people on there saying they were experts, and they never did that before. Why didn't they do that?
I think, marketing teams have typically had a structure that they've worked in. And I think if you think about the shift, the shift that happened quickly, if you look at events, for example, that you mentioned there, event teams historically could be quite siloed in marketing teams. Were the events that were taking place events that had just always happened? Were people attending exhibitions because that fear of missing out, competitors are there, we need to be there as well? And I think if you look at what the shift to virtual events did in 2020, because it was the only option, was event teams had to become integrated really within that marketing team. Because if it's a digital event, actually, really, it's just like a piece of content in a campaign. Yeah. So if an audience member engages in that event, what is that ongoing strategy to nurture them? How do we continue that conversation with them to move them along that buyer journey? And, as a result, we've seen some pretty significant shifts in the marketing teams in our clients where they have restructured their marketing teams to move forward. They're not going to go backwards now. And I think that's a real positive that's come out of COVID is that integration in particular of events. I don't think virtual events are going to completely replace in person. Our new favourite term at Revere is phygital, the mix of the physical and the digital. So I think moving forward, it's going to be really interesting over the next kind of 24 months to see how budgets are aligned to in-person or virtual events. Because, let's put it out there, running a virtual event is much easier to scale. Yeah. You can have multiple people attend and theoretically your cost isn't going up. So there's lots of considerations when, making a decision like that in terms of how you run events. And ultimately it comes back to, what is the objective of what we're trying to achieve with this event? Why do our audience care? Why are they going to attend? And that really should answer the question whether or not it's in-person, hybrid or digital.
So as businesses start to go back to normal, will marketing departments, will they revert back to sort of traditional marketing approaches, or do you think this is potentially here to stay now? Because, and I'll caveat a bit, because as we've sort of come out, there's been quite an appetite to go out and see people now. Salespeople have been going out and having meetings, which has been great. Yeah. Obviously, we've got the Channel Awards that's happening, which is really great. Yeah. But I'm interested in how long that'll last, because you mentioned earlier about the cost implication, and the time implication of CEOs. Yeah. Will they suddenly actually say, do you know what, there'll be a mixture, or will there be a hybrid of it, or do you think actually slowly we'll go back and events will happen and traditional marketing will come back?
No, I think the hybrid approach is here to stay. I think that, if we look at events, if you take a C-level audience, a lot of our clients will want to attract that C-level audience to events. That C-level person is extremely time poor. So firstly, there has to be a value exchange for them to attend. And sometimes we've probably all been there where people are scrambling to get that last minute event attendance, sales teams are calling up people. I think if you've got an existing customer network and your event is a retention activity or to drive depth in sales, that's very different. You've got a relationship there to kind of get in-person attendance. When you're looking at new customers and prospect nurture, you might be better to bring them into a virtual event that takes less amount of their time. There are ways to still make them exclusive, and there are ways to make sure that customer experience is still, interesting, inspiring.
How would you make it exclusive?
So, you can build in very kind of, I guess, kind of one-to-one events. You can build in workshops. You can make sure that, it's a very strategic and targeted approach. So ABM, for example, the buzzword in the marketing world at the moment, but, actually really well targeted account-based marketing plans often include virtual events. And things like that, where the audience completely understand that this is a tailored, personalised experience for them to attend, not just kind of a broad brush invite going out, where you're expecting to get attendance, because the reality is it's going to be hard to achieve.
Okay, so let's move on to one of my favourite terms in the IT channel, MDF. Now, how has that been affected by COVID? Because I hear a lot about MDF, and that could be like, we're going to spend it with a lead generation company and they're going to get some leads, or we're going to do a virtual event, or we actually might just spend it on a funded head and not even tell the vendor. Yeah. So where's your view on this? Because it's a big subject, and the vendors seem to have a lot of money to actually spend on MDF. Yeah,
completely. I think, firstly, MDF, if you can show utilisation and ROI, is ultimately limitless. I think, there's always budget there from vendors for the channel if they can show those things. Absolutely, MDF did pivot at COVID. I think, again, it wasn't necessarily MDF being cut from, I'd say, what we've seen. I think it's more different demands from vendors on the channel of what they wanted that MDF spent on. So again, obviously an obvious one around events, more digital marketing activities and things like that coming in. So MDF is a tricky one for sure. I think, the way it's set up does hinder, I guess, kind of innovative marketing sometimes. You're working in quarterly cycles, the planning cycles, the claiming deadlines. Sometimes you can be lastminute.com to try and get it all ready for that claiming, and it can, I guess, kind of force what I would say more tactical, siloed campaign activity. If I could wave a magic wand in the channel, my wish would be that kind of those cycles were sort of somehow scrapped or evolved to allow longer term, more strategic planning, which would really allow marketing to bring ongoing integrated campaigns, which I think, we're really lucky at Revere. We've got some great client partnerships where we've worked really hard with vendors to do exactly that. But it's not something that is necessarily easy. You have to have that trust, and you have to be showing ROI to get that continued investment. You
mentioned there about innovation. What's the most innovative marketing campaign that you've seen over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years?
Oh my goodness. I think some of the work we do with our clients to really connect the data, it's not the sexy creative. I think they're easy answers. I think the hard work behind the scenes that make campaigns successful are where people are really looking at the data they've got. They're really working out how they segment it, and they're really working out behind the scenes how to connect that customer data into a really connected strategy. So regardless of what the audience is being served with, they're constantly being brought through that funnel so that a really strong marketing qualified lead can be done, and then a really good sales qualified lead in that handover to take place. So for me, innovation since COVID has been people really thinking about their MarTech stack, what that looks like, and really kind of taking a step back. I think that's what COVID allowed companies to do. What is our marketing strategy here? Are we, do we have the right tools in place to do this? And I think that type of innovation is sometimes quite hard to implement, because you kind of almost need to sort of wipe the slate clean. What campaigns have you got? What LinkedIn, what have you got going on in LinkedIn? What are you going out and spending media budget on? But to actually take a step back and think, how are we, what does our database look like? When our database engage with content across all of our campaigns, how do we integrate that? And for me, it's that kind of innovation that excites me, because it's then easy at that point, if you have that baseline, to add in the good content strategies, the good creative campaigns and the good messaging. That for me is what we find easy. We can bring that to clients, but if they haven't got that foundation layer, it's ultimately, not a connected journey.
How do you get buy-in from sales and marketing to work together? Because I was listening to you and I was thinking, do you know what? Yeah, I'm not a strategy person. I'm more of an execution person. Yeah. And the long-term strategy wouldn't work for me, because I'm trying to close. Yeah. And it's short-sighted. I get that it's short-sighted. But as a salesperson, I'm interested in what's happening this quarter, leads, etc., etc. And obviously, marketing are trying to look at the longer strategy and making sure there's qualified leads. But we both, in essence, want the same thing. But there is a reluctance to work together. Why do you think that is? Misunderstanding of each other, or? Yeah,
I think a lot of it is about time and communication. Ultimately, I think you kind of touched on some of it there. I think the success is by having the conversations and from marketing's role is to bring in sales at the right time. So for us, a lot of our campaigns or the marketing programs we implement start with discovery. And as I said, we're really lucky at Revere. A lot of the time our clients will bring us into discussions with their sales teams.
Which is great.
And what's really interesting is when we run these discoveries, quite often Revere are leading them. So we're questioning our client, whether it be the vendor or channel partner or distributor, around, right, what's your unique story here? What are the customer insights? So we take a lot from what they're hearing on the sales floor, what the challenge is, in your kind of sales engagement model, what are the hurdles you're coming up against? So we try and extract all that insight from them. So then the marketing we put together ultimately shows them content that is going to help and resonate with what they're doing. So the success is to bring them in early. When we run those discoveries, quite often after, the marketing team will say to us, gosh, that's really interesting. When we've spoken to sales in the past, just kind of conversationally, they've never really explained it like that, or they've never really told us it like that. So I think sometimes an external party can, I guess, maybe make people, tell the story in a different way. Maybe they assume their internal colleagues perhaps know detail that they perhaps don't. Yeah. So that normally is something that works really well for us, is just bringing them in up front. And by doing that, ultimately, if you're a sales guy, Mark, and you're in that discovery and we're listening to everything you say, when we come back with our marketing strategy, we're playing back everything you've told us. So our strategy is a narrative of playback of exactly what you've said, all the insights you've given us. We bring in market and audience intelligence. We build a strategy and we show how that strategy is going to meet everything you've told us. So quite frankly, it's all about the piece up front. It does take time, but when you then come to deliver that content, you're accelerating it and you're ultimately going to get better ROI because you've done the right thinking up front.
For those who are short-sighted like myself about marketing,
I'm just sensing. I am just sensing you're not a believer.
Yeah, no, you're converting me, Fiona. You're converting me.
Come on,
so
it's my goal.
Is there a sort of resistance when you first talk about strategy? So again, example, we get a salesperson on. They have a target. We see where the revenue come, etc. We see the ROI. In marketing comes on. It might be strategy. It might be longer. It's difficult to see the ROI, even though the long tail of it will probably be successful. So is there initial resistance when you work with a vendor or a channel partner to sort of say, well, this is what we do. So even if you present the strategy, they say, yeah, but it's going to cost us a load of money.
Yeah, to a degree, I can understand that. I think it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about being aligned to a longer term business vision. So working to what metrics look like in 12 months time or 6 months time, and working step by step. One of the things we always do, and we're really clear, particularly when we're writing plans for MDF, what business objective are we trying to achieve? And ultimately that's always aligned to sales. And what is the marketing objective we're trying to achieve? So is this an awareness piece? Do your audience know about this story? What stage are they at? and then we build out marketing success metrics. So what does that look like for this quarter, but then what does it look like for next quarter and beyond? So for me, how I would kind of, I guess, if I were, you and my challenge, what I would probably do in terms of a strategic plan is excite you with what it could look like in the future. So show you that journey that will go on and show you what success will look like. And I think the other thing as well is, salespeople are time poor. So it's also important, they don't kind of, I guess, want marketing coming to them every month. Oh, can you review this? Can you have a read of this piece of content? And I think, the worst thing for a sales is where marketing come and put a 12-page e-guide in front of them, and the salesperson reads it and thinks, where has this come from? Like, what is this all about? And ultimately, kind of hand on heart, I believe that, the way we work with clients means that never happens, because we've involved the sales teams up front. We map all our content to a buyer journey to show how our campaigns and our content will move people along a sales funnel. So when sales come to review something, they kind of don't need to, because they've been bought in at the start. So again, it should mean that it's a more efficient and quality delivery for all involved.
Now, I did say I wasn't a believer in marketing, but the only reason I said that was because I believe that salespeople should be able to market themselves. And I'm not just saying cold calling and just bugging people, but be able to sort of put threads out in the market, show relevant content, etc. So almost be a marketing salesperson.
Yeah, sure.
Do you believe now, and I actually think marketing has replaced almost new business now because of people acting like consumers. Do you believe now, because no one wanted to be cold called in COVID, everyone was just, it's just keep the lights on time. Do you believe now that marketing is almost replacing the need for net new logo people, where they actually, because when I hear about cold calling, I don't want to be cold called. I wouldn't cold call, but I would say I'm a new business person that would use marketing to get information. So what's your view on that? Do you see marketing now actually replacing new business? Actually, the lead will come in and it'll be generated through marketing.
I think there's a couple of bits to that. So firstly, I completely agree with what you said around salespeople. They are ultimately a channel to market. So if you look at LinkedIn, for example, we will do a lot of toolkits for our clients to help them take campaigns to market on their own channels. I think, lots of articles go down really well on LinkedIn, that human approach, the stuff that you guys do, on channel chat. It's very human, and ultimately that's what gets people engaging. So utilising your sales teams as a channel to reach your audience is really important, and there's lots of things that marketing teams can do to amplify your success in doing that. The second part to it, I think you're right. I think it's a bit of a journey. I think that cold calling has its place, or that kind of telemarketing, programs, they can work well if integrated at the right time. So again, to go back to, if you've got a long-term demand generation program in place that is ultimately looking to deliver pipeline to your business, if you have the right lead scoring in place for prospect nurture, there probably becomes a time when that call is made. But is that a telemarketing agency versus one of your sales teams? I think there are some great agencies out there that can do good qualification to make sure the handover is successful. But I do think that, ultimately people want to, regardless of what it is, people don't want to be sold to. So our job as marketing is really to make sure we look at what the audience care about, what their challenges are, and regardless of whatever tactic we're taking to them, it's showing them that we're helping solve a challenge. We're not just telling them what the product or solution is.
Very Now, Fiona, you took part in an event back in 2019 that highlighted the challenges of attracting more females into this very male-dominated technology market. Why do you feel there's such a disparity in, I think it's 15.9% of females in tech. Why don't people want to come into our market?
Don't know. I think, I'm kind of on the other side of the fence of it in the agency world. I think when I started my career, I kind of fell into tech. It didn't really kind of happen. It was PR that my career started in, and the agency I joined had Google as an account, and I just kind of thought, that sounds sexy. Like,
yeah, sounds great.
I'll be drinking champagne and networking with the press.
Yeah.
This will be an easy life. And I remember, you know, my first kind of year, I was a grad, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I was, you know, having to write articles around virtualization for Computer Centre, I think, at the time, and, you know, it was like absolutely whirlwind. I think a lot of people probably fall into it. I'm not sure, you know, you necessarily grow up thinking about kind of tech as or I certainly didn't think about tech as a career. I think it's definitely challenging. I think from a marketing perspective, the B2B side is complex. You know, we've touched upon a lot of it today. So for me, it's a real challenge above consumer. I think in terms of kind of females in tech, I think there's a lot being done across the industry. I think, you know, we're really lucky that a lot of people are speaking out now. There's definitely more conversation about it. I guess going through my career, I have been guilty of definitely bringing male colleagues into meetings where we've maybe been conversing, kind of discovery sessions or selling in strategy. And I have been guilty of saying, you know, internally, particularly because, you know, our business ultimately is sales. We're selling, you know, we're selling to our clients. We're project by project. And I have been guilty of saying internally, I think maybe you should present this. They'll hear this from you.
Do you think that's an ignorance from the person listening? Because it's, when you told me that, I was thinking, really, would that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think it's changing. I think it's changing. I think I've been really lucky across my career to work with some great people who have never made me feel like that, just to be clear, you know, who have really listened to me even when I was, you know, a 24-year-old who didn't really know what they were talking about. You know, they listened to my opinion, and you know, I was really lucky to be involved working with, you know, some vendors and working with their senior team, and really did feel like part of the team. But I think now, I don't think I'd do it now. I think now that the you know, the narrative is out there and there's so much work being done to really champion females in tech, I think actually I now realise I have a responsibility that I shouldn't do that. And if I don't feel that, you know, a voice is being heard because of my gender or my age perhaps, then, you know, I guess it's for me to sort of speak up.
Absolutely. Here. So let's move on, because one of the reasons we wanted to do this series was to help people get back into work. So almost a couple of quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
When interviewing, from a marketing perspective, how can a marketing candidate really impress you if they wanted to join Revere?
So I think it's all about preparation and research. So if someone comes and they've taken the time to kind of get to know not only Revere but our clients, so showing an understanding of, you know, our clients' challenges in the industry, not just the obvious looking at the website, I guess going a little bit deeper than that. I see you work with so and so, and you know, I've seen that they're like really, you know, this is their challenge, and I guess as marketing agencies you must be helping combat that. So really kind of bringing a conversation to the table so that weirdly they start leading the interview.
Yeah, interviewing you basically.
I love that. And I think, you know, particularly as the client services director, the people that I'm recruiting into the team, that's what they're doing. We're the face of the agency, we're the people that work with our clients day to day. So they have to have amazing communicative skills. You know, they have to be able to lead conversations. So if I kind of feel like there's sort of silence, which as you can guess from speaking to me, there often isn't anyway. But you know, if someone can lead the conversation with me, my goodness, that's impressive.
Now, as a candidate that obviously went to Google and thought it was going to be champagne and roses and went into that industry, what advice would you give a candidate who's really ambitious, wants to get up the ladder, wants to get into a position like you, and wants to move up quickly? How can they actually get up that?
It's the obvious stuff. So we've actually just brought in 6 kind of entry level positions into client services. So there's lots of kind of fresh chat in the agency at the moment. Exactly that. You know, what do they need to do to progress? What do they need to do to be successful? I think it all comes down to really having open conversation with your line managers and listening to the advice that you're given, but not being afraid to ask questions. I think that's probably the biggest thing that anyone can do in those first kind of 6 to 12 months. I think looking back, I felt I had to know all the answers when I started my career, and I think, my goodness, like the acronyms that exist in our world, tech in general, but then by every client and company there's just a different language. And I think I always say to people when they join, ask away for the next 24 months, because then people will assume you know it, so take that opportunity while you can.
Okay, great. And my last question, and it's quite a generic one, but you're going to be the best person to answer this. If there's channel partners, vendors, distributors out there that haven't really got a marketing strategy, maybe they haven't really done the digital transformation to marketing in the new age of 2021, but they want to get started, and they hopefully they can come and chat to Revere and get some advice from yourselves. But what's the sort of the key fundamentals they should be doing to sort of say, well, Mark, they should be doing this and this to get started and get something going?
Yeah, I think it's tricky, because every marketing plan is going to differ by company. I think actually even having a marketing plan it sounds really basic, but having a marketing framework in place that shows, okay, what are you doing at a brand level? What does your brand message and your objectives look like? What is then your thought leadership, your campaign strategy? And below that, what are your, I guess, kind of solutions and campaigns that you are then going to talk about? Having an actual framework in place, that means every activity is, I guess, defined, but connected is key, because there's a lot where you might have a marketing team going and all working on different things, but how does it all connect? Because ultimately your customer doesn't know that. They're going to interact with your brand and they need to have a seamless journey. So I guess my advice to start with is having that clear defined marketing framework in place. It can be agile, it can change, but having that. The other thing for digital transformation is, I guess for me, it's like slow and steady wins the race. It's breaking it down, not trying to adopt all the buzzwords, the quick wins. So ABM as an example, lots of people are coming to us now to help define their ABM strategies. But, before you can do a really good ABM strategy, there's not often a conversation around data. So I guess it's about breaking it down, working on what that long-term strategy looks like, but into kind of measurable, step-by-step deliverables to achieve that is key.
And if any channel partners want to get hold of yourself or Revere, how's the best way to get hold of you? LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. LinkedIn or through our website. I think we pride ourselves on being really transparent about what we do and don't do. I'm always up for a chat, as you can probably tell.
Brilliant. Fiona, you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks, Mark.